Welcome to the STARS program, seniors taking active roles in society. And now, here's your host, ANITA FINLEY.
For those of you who are struggling at home in many ways, not only just because you maybe have, you're lonely, or maybe because you're anxious about things, or you've just lost your pet, as I just had, unfortunately, lost my pet. But for those of you who have financial considerations or concerns, but at the same time you have personal concerns, you can't go to a CPA in a CPA's office and start complaining about your son-in-law or somebody else. They really don't care. I mean, they're there to do the money. But we are so fortunate to have Mark Morowitz, who is he's kind, he's smart, and he decided, instead of just being a CPA as he's been, he really wants to help people. He wants to help people with all sorts of concerns, and whether it's personal or financial or emotional or something. So we asked Mark to come on our show, and also he writes a great column every month in Boomer Times. Mark, it's unusual to have someone of your caliber, someone who has the financial expertise that you do, and yet you're so patient and kind. Was that all part of your makeup?
As modest as I am, I'd have to agree with you on that. Thank you. I guess that's who I am, who I was, the role I played in my family growing up. Just sensitive to other people, and never wanted to hurt a fly. But I do want to correct you on one thing.
What did I do?
So, you can come to my office and talk about how your son-in-law or something like that, because everybody does. All right, I'm like the place where people unburden themselves. All right, and that's okay. That's all part of the social thing. To satisfy your clients and to service your clients properly, you have to take an interest in them. People don't want to just go someplace to H&R Block where they don't even know if they're going to get the same person next week. So people have kind of picked up on that. So I probably spend way too much time with my clients, but it's going to be all in the book at some point. And maybe I'll capitalize on that. But when I first started in business many years ago, I remember I for some reason attracted young divorced women as clients. I don't know what I did, or maybe it was the fact that I was able to listen to them and willing to listen to them.
And were you single at the time?
No, I was married,
okay.
and nothing else on the side or anything like that. But I was willing to listen to what they had to say, because I guess apparently nobody listened to what they had to say, which was probably one of the reasons why they were divorced. And they would come in and they would sit down, and they would just go and go and go. And finally, the only way I could get them out of my office was I actually had a baseball cap prepared with the psychiatrist written on it. So once I would put that hat on, and they would see me put that hat on, and they go, "Oh, I guess it's time to go because my fee is going to go up now." And I say, whichever way you take it. So anyway,
that's funny. That is funny. No, that's true. Well, but that's why I started off saying that you are different, because many CPAs they don't have the time. I mean, you're there for something else, but you have a whole different way of looking at people and things. So, Mark Morowitz, you have actually been living up north, and now do you go back and forth?
I go back and forth a lot less than I used to. I probably go up north maybe every 6 or 8 weeks, a few times, just to keep my hat in the ring there, because I still have to work. I'm not retired. And during tax season gets a little bit more hectic, but I'm figuring out ways to not have to go there too much. I'm at the point where if people want me to do their tax returns from New Jersey, then they'll put them in the mail or scan them and email them to me, or put them in my Dropbox, and we'll figure that out.
So I'm going to ask you a very strange question about people.
Okay.
Are people different up north than they are down here, the retireds?
Well, there's a lot of retired people here that actually live in the north, so they're pretty much the same. But that's a joke. To answer that question, I think the people up north, the retired people, the older people, seem to be a little bit more laid back than they are here. And I think the reason for that, if they are snowbirds here, okay, and they split their time, they have to get everything into the 6 months that they spend here, or the 4 months that they spend here, or whatever. In New Jersey, everybody's kind of in that same place year round, and it's just kind of the way I kind of read it. I don't know. I mean, I don't know that you can actually pigeonhole a group of people into the same thing. But
well, what I find, and this is strange, is that people come down here, but they rave about their home in New York usually. Oh, I can't get this, I can't get this here, but they always wind up coming down here.
Well,
so what's that story?
Okay, so New Yorkers are they brag and they boast, and having been a New Yorker at one time, although I pronounce my R's now, that's from spending years in South Jersey, which is a Philadelphia suburb, but I hate the Eagles. I just think that that's the culture that they grew up in. I think that's kind of disappearing a little bit with my generation, okay? Maybe the people that are maybe 20 years older than me, they, I think, went through that, because my parents used to do that. My aunts, and, everybody was always competing against one another. I remember my grandmother had a sister, and they were very competitive. And my father, this is the story that I got, my father was dating my mother's cousin before my mother, and she took him to a dance, and he met my mother, and
she
said,
took him to a dance and met my mother. Right?
That's who I wanted. So he dropped my mother's cousin, and he started dating my mother, and they got married. And my grandmother's sister was very upset.
I can imagine.
So then when her daughter met her husband, I remember she said in Yiddish, she said to my grandmother, "Das a husband, this is a husband." So they were competitive.
Right.
I think that was just the way it was.
Yeah.
I think it's less like that today. I think people are more satisfied with what they have. I don't have many friends that compete outwardly with other people. Mm-hmm. So I think that's slowly going away.
So talk about the kinds of people that you do see who you really help. Are they younger? Are we talking about people in their 30s? Are we talking about people in their 50s or the 80s?
It runs the gamut. The young people, there are young people that are unfamiliar with finances. They start making some money. They have spending habits that just won't cut it. And after a couple of years of spending every dime that they make, they realize that they want to settle down, they want to have kids, they want to buy a house. So they have to come to me for advice, and I have to instill some discipline in them. And the lucky ones are the ones that take my advice. Then you have the group that have been are in their maybe early 50s, late 40s, that are established in business, that have been married for a long time and are pretty much getting dissatisfied with their lives. Okay, and I think this is that midlife crisis that people talk about. How do you satisfy this crisis? Usually it's by spending money. Okay, so people start to buy things that they don't need, and they find that after a short while that the things that they buy they're just not being satisfied. Okay, and this is why the divorce rate was up to 52%. One of the reasons why people just they lost that communication, and they just started buying toys, and they come to me. They either fall behind on their taxes, and I have to help them with a plan to pay off their taxes or bankruptcies or whatever. And then you have the older people, okay, who pretty much have figured it out, but they lose the ability either through dementia or some other reason that they can't do it for themselves anymore. So that's more of a physical and emotional service that I provide. I find older people need some social, they need to be around people, because nobody has time for them anymore.
What I noticed when I used to visit older adults.
Am I right by that?
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. I love what you said. I was going to ask you a few more questions, but I just want to relate something. I noticed that the older adults in their homes take their dining room table where they're supposed to eat. They have a little place there for their food, but everything else loaded with papers. Papers and papers. And I even find myself a little guilty doing this. So now every night I clear off my dining room table because it's so convenient, but things have to be in place, but they are so loaded. And I remembered sometimes they'd have newspapers for months. And I don't know how you deal with that. Let's say you go in there and you're there to help them with their, maybe checks and bookkeeping. Do you ever deal with that and try to help them figure out how to put that away?
Some people are legitimate hoarders, and that's an issue, an illness that I'm not qualified to deal with. That's real psychiatrists deal with stuff like that. But there are people that are afraid to throw away their bills and stuff like that. And I go to their houses and I say, let me see the bills, okay? And they got a big pile of bills. And I said, why do you have your electric bill from 6 months ago? Well, just in case the IRS asked me. I said, but you don't deduct electric. You don't deduct utilities on your tax return. They're never going to ask you about that. As long as you've been credited for your last month's payment, throw it away. Throw away last month. You don't need it anymore. Okay? So I go in and I grab all that stuff and I shred it for them. Okay?
Good, because I think that's something. Now
yeah, they're very happy.
By
the way, can I jump in one thing?
Sure.
I want to make a shout out to a woman by the name of Elaine.
Okay.
Who heard me speaking on the show,
right.
I guess last month or whatever,
Okay.
and she called me.
Yeah.
And she left a message.
Yes.
Because I couldn't answer the phone at the time. And she left a message and a voicemail. And I called her back the next day. I didn't even know what her name was, but she answered the phone, hi, it's Elaine, and it was a voicemail. So I left the voicemail and I told her who I was and that she had called me and blah, 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 and she never called me back. And she didn't call me. I did that twice and she hasn't called me back. So Elaine, if you're listening today, give me a call back. Mark Morowitz, 609-338-3603.
Oh, yes, you'd be so surprised and impressed. You must do this. And I guess, and I won't go any further, but he's terrific and you'll love it. But I also have two other listeners here right now. Somebody, so I'm not going to go through that, but I'm glad that happened. But I want to go back to what you said. So let's take that younger person in their 30s or 40s, and they're starting to make money. What do you tell them they should be doing? How much should they save? What do you tell them? Stocks, bonds, IRA? Tell me about what you advise.
I don't make recommendations for investing. That's not my thing. I'm not licensed to do that, but I do refer them to people that do. But before we do that, we set up a budget, okay? And I mean, this is somebody's first real job. People come to me, the parents of my clients, and the kid needs help, okay? So we sit down. We sit down for an hour. I tell them to write down all their expenses, okay? This is what you're going to spend your money on. And they give me a wish list. And I said, you really can't spend all this money. Well, why not? I said, because you don't make this much money. So you need to cut your expenses. And I teach them how to do that. And I said, but it takes discipline. If you don't have discipline in your life, it probably isn't going to work. Okay? And then we're going to have other problems down the road. So the ones that do take my advice, in fact, it even happened to me. I remember when I first started out, I used to put my money in envelopes.
I did also years ago.
And there was rent.
Right.
And whatever was left, was what I had to spend for the week. And it wasn't usually a lot because I didn't make a lot of money when I first started. And over the years, obviously, I didn't have to do that anymore. And then there was a point in my life where my wife was spending all the money in the checking account. And I'd say, why are you what are you doing? You can't spend all that money. And she said, but it's there. I said, yeah, but it's there. There's going to be bills coming in. We need it. So I had to
went back to the envelopes.
I had to revert back to the envelopes. Okay. However, now I had 3 kids in the house and a wife, and they looked for money. So I had to hide the envelopes.
Oh, this is hysterical.
Okay.
This is
but
wonderful.
then when technology happened, okay, what I did was I set up an Excel program worksheet for it and just put columns. So every week I would just take a certain amount of money. I needed $20 a week for my kids for lunch in school. I needed $100 a week for my property taxes. I needed $50 a week for my car loan. And I would take that amount of money every week and put it into a separate bank account that nobody knew about except for me. Okay?
Oh.
And I would just, in the columns, all right, I would fill in the columns each week, and then at the end of the month, I would have my car loan. I would take the money out of that account, transfer it to the checking account, write a check, and that's the way I would do it. And nobody found that, so I didn't have cash laying around the house.
Right.
It was however, not everybody can do that.
No.
I'm disciplined. I can look at money in the bank and not want to spend it. And I find that that's highly unusual. People see money, they go crazy. I need to spend it.
Right.
No, you don't. You really don't. And that's kind of what I bring to the table. Okay?
That's excellent.
I
right.
Smack them on the hand if they, they don't listen.
Right. But now you're getting into some people who have very high salaries, and they have 401ks. They have other things.
Right.
But they still need your advice because
Correct.
they still. I mean, you have to look at it in the long run. They're going to be 60 and 80, and here they're making all this
Right.
money, and what are they going to do with the money?
Well, what is it that they want to do with their money? That's the first question that I ask.
Be independent.
Well, so do you have a goal for retirement? How old do you want to be when you retire? Do you want to put money away for your kids for college? So it goes, the money goes into a college fund for the kids. The money goes, they max out their retirement plan at work. They have a 401k. They put the max into it. And they then take a certain amount of money that they feel that they can live without, and that's when I refer them to the financial advisor. Okay, and he's the one that does the investing, and then the investing that he does, and I'm involved in all this, by the way. Okay, I'm like the quarterback, right, passing off to different people to do different things.
That you're watching over.
Yeah. The investment decisions are made based on length of time to retirement, risk factors, and do you like risk? Do you not like risk? There's a whole lot of stuff that goes into it, and the people that come to me before it's too late are the smart ones.
Recently, I know of a couple of people who literally had to move back with their parents. And are you seeing this? Whether you're seeing it or not, but I know you had a little bit of it. But people, the kids, even if they haven't lost their job, they're not making enough to pay their rent or to pay things. Now, isn't that funny? I don't find that a bad thing because parents have missed their kids anyway. Now they get to be with them. The kids probably don't like it though.
Well, you know what? It's not healthy. It's one thing to, you're there for your kids. They fall down, you pick them up, and they stay for a little while, and you help them get back on their feet. But it's not healthy for adult children to live with their parents. It's just not healthy emotionally and for relationship purposes, and it doesn't help them develop the skills necessary to be on their own. Okay. When I was 25, I remember going for a job interview, and the controller, one of his pitches to me was, you get a pension, and you'll get $900 a month or whatever. This is 40 years ago, and I looked at him and I said, that's 40 years down the road when I'm 65. That's crazy. I'm not worried about that. And you know what? That 40 years goes really fast, and I've learned that, and from experience, I'm able to impart that knowledge to my clients and get them to start earlier. Okay.
Well, the reason I mention that is because a lot of parents really do miss their kids. Their kids are, now it's a very
Sure.
different world, and if someone just lives in a house and then they don't bother them, but they have a place to stay, they eat there sometimes, so they come and go, you really think that's bad?
Well, I don't think they learn responsibility. I think if they take advantage of the parents, a lot of kids do that, regardless of age. So if somebody moved back in the house and says, you know what, I will take care of my space, I will make dinner, I will take the trash out, I will do all this. But what I find is that regardless of the age, parents tend to put those kids back to when they were younger.
Of course.
And that's not healthy at all. It's just not.
Okay, so we'll cancel.
We'll disagree on
Yeah,
that.
no, it's okay.
But there's nothing wrong with your kids coming to visit,
right.
you know, and then going home after a couple of hours. You know, nothing wrong
Right.
with that.
Yeah, right. Well, I guess the big problem is that now I want to reverse all the way to the other end. So now you have elder parents, and they're not doing so well. How do you feel about their moving back into their adult children's homes?
Well, it all depends on how much they can afford. So if there's a separate area for the parents to live in, I have no problem with that. The same way it's parent and child living together, you know, it takes a relationship. It puts a lot of strain on a relationship when parents move in with their children. Okay, so if number one, I recommend if the elderly people can afford it, they move into an assisted living if they need assistance in their daily activities. Okay?
They want to be with their kids.
But what happens a lot after a couple of weeks is that they find that if it may work out great, it may. Sometimes it doesn't. Sometimes the relationship gets strained, and the parents have these expectations of the kids being there for them, like the parents were for the kids until the kids became adults, which is what parents do. But it doesn't work that way. So the expectations aren't managed properly, and they butt heads, and it becomes an issue.
This is why you're so good at what you do, because I'm sure when they propose these kinds of things, you sit there as like the Solomon talking about things. But let me give everybody, Elaine, if you're listening, the phone number is 609-338-3603, and you'll be very pleased with Mark. And I don't know why you didn't call him back, but he really is. He's very special. He's very smart and kind, and does know a lot of things. And he's not a psychiatrist, as he says, but he certainly has been around enough to...
I don't prescribe medication, but I do listen to people. It's interesting. I was at I go every morning to the hospital. Right now I'm in the middle of this IV antibiotic thing, okay? No big deal. I'm in good health, other than that. And what I told somebody yesterday, I'm 2 weeks into this, and I said, you know what, it's interesting. The people there, the nurses, they become like your family. The nurses and the other patients, it becomes like family. So, when people finish, you start to miss them. So I told that to one of the nurses today, and one of the nurses wasn't showing up today. And so one of the other nurses got angry because they had to leave early. And they started this infighting thing. And I said to the nurse, I said, we're family now. I said, I don't like this infighting among the family. And she started laughing. She said, oh, we're not really fighting. But, sometimes it takes somebody to say something so that people can take a step back.
So I'm going to give you a proposal about something. We have the Volin Center, and I don't know if you've ever been there. It's a place you need to go to see. It's one of the finest senior centers probably in South Florida. And they are really anxious for more volunteers because they do everything from activities during the day, health, to adult daycare. And I have proposed for myself, I probably will go start 1 day a week, couple of hours to go, because I know them very well. And I'm going to propose that to you because I think they would kill to have someone like you with your heart and with your mind, and all you're going to do is sit and either talk, because you brought this up now with like a family. They are like a family, and it might be something for you to look into. Give them a couple of hours. You sit there, you talk with them. It will make you feel so good, because I don't know if you are spending a lot of time volunteering.
I really don't have that much time available right now to volunteer, but this has been a strange year. But it
Mark
could
it
be
on
in
your
my
calendar.
plans. Could be in my plans.
Yeah, you will benefit so much from it, because I don't have time either. But I'm going to take the time. I'll give up having lunch or do something. I want to go back there and just be there to just see what goes on. And this is not a nursing home. It's really a big senior center. In fact, you'll appreciate this. They have probably about 29 buses that they fan out every day, 5 days a week, to different areas and take people, bring them there, bring them home, take them to doctors' offices. It's really a superb place. And I think, looking at you now, thinking about it, boy, would they be lucky to have you as a volunteer.
Well, when I'm in Jersey, I have a client who's in an assisted living facility, and I spent time with her there, and I just see she doesn't want me to go. Once I'm there, she doesn't want me to leave. But because it's company.
Yeah.
It's company, and that's one thing that people miss.
Yeah.
And I will definitely,
think about it, because the senior center, they prepare. I mean, they have, and you can actually speak. They'd love to have you speak there. They have someone maybe that's on the piano. They have people that do, library talks. It's really a marvelous place. It's just in Boca Raton. Also, it's right off Palmetto, and by I-95. And I really suggest that, because I'm going to do it. And I thought that you'd be so valuable to them. And I think in my column that I wrote about volunteers, you get more from being a volunteer, I think, than even they get from your being a volunteer. You can appreciate that, and I know that.
Yeah, we'll see. We'll see how that works.
I won't push you anymore. I just want to mention.
Okay.
So, Elaine, if you want to go and be a volunteer there at the bowling center, you can meet at the bowling center. Exactly. Well, it's been wonderful again. I always have a smile on my face when you come in, because there's always so much that I get from you. You have a lovely aura of kindness, and we're certainly glad that you stick with Boomer Times.
Thank you. I do love to kibitz, and
you're good.
I do love to make this half hour fun.
Yeah.
So.
Thank you. Well, we appreciate it very much, and we'll see you again next time.